have the reflector oven in front of me. I'm just going to make a box cake. This one is a banana bread, so that's just the box cake by Betty Crocker. It calls for 1 banana. It calls for some cooking oil, and I would definitely not use anything like an olive oil in this. You want a light oil, and the light oils are obviously light. And most recipes for cakes and stuff like that want a light oil. This recipe also calls for a couple of eggs, so I've got some eggs that I brought. Normally on a canoe trip I'm using powdered eggs, right? So, and I normally am using recipes that I've totally mixed up myself, simply because I bought this box recipe, and where we are, it's convenient to use a nice fresh egg. But believe me, I have a lot of experience with doing this. The powdered egg stuff works perfectly fine. Just make sure you get your mixtures right, because powdered eggs, actually I think it's 28 grams per egg, and that's a fair bit of powder. People don't know that. They think if you throw a tablespoon in, that's an egg, and it's not. It's more like about 5 tablespoons of powdered egg to equal 1 egg. Okay, so that's an important thing. But the nice thing about long canoe trips is you can do everything with dry ingredients. This particular recipe is calling for a fresh banana and all that, but normally everything I have is dehydrated, and I'm making these recipes like 2 weeks into a trip. I have lots of Nalgene's at home, like 40 milliliters, 60 milliliters Nalgene's, and I won't bring a whole one of these. I just have my little tiny Nalgene already with the molasses, or if I'm making an icing, sometimes I'll make it with limoncello, or just concentrated lemon juice. Oh, sorry, I have it all ready, packed away. It lasts weeks on trips. Molasses, because it's sugar based, it doesn't go bad. And you can have all this stuff, like I prepare a recipe and I have it like all the containers, all the flour in a separate bag. I rewash the bags after. I put it all inside one large bag, Ziploc it, fold it over, and then I use packing tape around it, so it's like a little football, and that just goes in the barrel, and I don't touch it, say sometimes for 12, 14, 16 days. It comes out, I mix it up like I'm doing right now, and I get desserts that are as good as you can make at home. And that's all because of the reflector oven. This is what you normally use, a round pan. You don't use a square pan, simply because you're going to get a more even bake in the reflector oven using a round pan. Another thing I learned along the way, I don't want to have to worry about cleaning the pan, so I use parchment paper. The parchment paper comes in rolls. I just take a nice sharp knife with a sharp tip, and I cut the paper to fit into the pan. Another way to do it, which is actually really convenient, is to actually take your square piece of parchment paper, and when you've measured what you need, is actually fold it up into one of these like cone-like things. And you can do this all at home. A lot of trips I'll take like 10 pieces of parchment paper already prepared, and I just snip it like that. So I have 10 of these. I use a paper clip, and it goes into my bag, and whatever recipe I'm using, I just pull out a piece of parchment paper and I'm ready to go. The nice thing about it is I can actually mix the recipe inside the parchment paper, go ahead, cook it, and then afterwards, when we're ready to eat, I take the parchment paper off, I throw it in the fire, and I have a clean pan to put away. So anybody who's done any kind of camping knows that it's a pain in the butt to be cleaning pans. And this is just one thing I've learned along the way. If you don't cut the parchment paper if you let it hang over the edge, it will catch fire. I've done that before, and that's kind of a pain because you can end up with it burning down the side. So it is good to kind of make sure your parchment paper is all at the level of the bowl, or the pan I should say. You can just do it all the mixing right inside the parchment paper. I suggest use a spoon. If you use a fork, especially if people are bringing metal forks on the trip, you could rip the parchment paper, and you don't want that. Some people, if you want, you can mix everything in a bowl, but then you got to clean the bowl. Although it's probably easier doing it in a bowl. I'm lazy, so I want to just do it all in the parchment paper. If you have a whisk, you could get the eggs better prepared before you add them. I find that much fuss isn't necessary. It would be smart to try this at home first, using, like, not having all your home gear, like basically bake it at home, but do it with just what you'll know you'll have on the trip, so that when you get out, you're not struggling.